And because I wasn't recording yet, now I'm going to record it. Because that way Jerry Nelka could have it. So it's dedicated in memory of Elka's mother, Golda Bas Yosef Zelig Halevi, by Jerry Nelka Rotman. Her neshama should have an aliyah mechayel l'choyel.
Amen.
And we remember her with a lot of joy and happiness. A really terrific, wonderful, special lady.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. And in addition, also tonight's Pre-Shabbos Ruach is sponsored by Shulamis Koffler in memory of her brother, David Koffler, and may his neshama have an aliyah. Remember David well. He was a very warm and friendly person. And we hope that this will bring nechama and nachas to the entire mishpacha. Okay, and I see that Hudis is now on board. Hi, Hudis, how you doing? Nice to see you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Hi.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Sure. And Eileen, how are you tonight? Okay. Good to see you. Jerry, I need to hear you about your background tonight. What's the? You're muted though. You're muted.
Oh no, he's talking.
Jerry, and Eileen, you have this virtual background. Every week it's a different city.
Okay, this week we're in Sfat.
Oh, nice. Okay.
He didn't tell me. I didn't know until he just said it.
It's part of the old city that we have there.
Well, Elka, is your sister still in Sfat?
Excuse me?
Okay.
Yes.
So it fits very well because Elka's sister and family
Oh,
live
maybe
in,
we'll see her.
live in Sfat.
Well, they're on lockdown now,
Turn
so
around and look.
Oh, okay.
they're on lockdown. They're probably not, but our
Oh, well.
spirit is surely with us, especially tonight.
For sure. Okay, great to see everybody. We'll start with a little luchadodi and then go into a topic or two, some divrei Torah for tonight. Luchadodi likras kalani radadadi radadai p'nei Shabbos nikavela luchadodi likras kalani p'nei Shabbos nikavela Ishamar v'zachar b'dibur echad Ishmiyanu kelam yucharayai Diriram bye bam Diriram bye bam bye bye Hashem echad Shemaya chal D'Shem L'sifer eles v'lisila Ay L'chadaydi L'ikras kala P'nei Shabbos nekavam Diriram v'vam v'diriram Diriram v'v'diriram Diriram v'diriram Diriram v'vam v'vam Shomer v'zofer Ayaboi v'shalom ateres bala gamberina v'tzahalayai V'vam v'vam Tochemune Am Segula Boichala 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 Shabbos Malkisa Lechadaydi Ligaras Kalala P'nei Shabbos Nekalam Diriram Bam Diriram Diriram bye 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 Diriram bye diriram Diriram bye bam bye ram Diriram bam 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 Diriram bam Diriram bye da 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 ram bye diriram Diriram bye bam Diriram bye bye da 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 Diriram bye bye bam Diriram da da diriram bye diriram Diriram bye bam Diriram bye bam bye diriram Diriram bye bye diriram bye bam bye diriram Diriram bye diriram bye diriram Diriram bye bye Diriram bye 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 Di-di-da-da, di-di-da, di-di-da-da-da, da-da. Asher Koach. I just have a fan club over there to my left. Nice to see everybody. Wanted to share a few thoughts with you. First of all, something I heard from my Rabbi, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, Rabbi Shlomo Twersky, Hornist Steipler Rebbe in Denver. He brought out in this week's Parsha, Parshas Bo, in the plague of Arbeh, Arbeh is locust. The Baal HaTurim writes that the Arbeh rested on Shabbos. Understand that they were eating the crops all week long, but not on Shabbos. On Shabbos, the Arbeh did not eat the crops. Brought down in the Baal HaTurim. Very fascinating thing. So Rabbi Twersky asked, what is the significance of this for us? What can we learn from this? And he said, now the first part of this we've discussed a few times relative to these parshios. The 10 makos, the 10 plagues in Mitzrayim had a dual effect. They were for the Mitzrayim a blow, a plague, and they were for the Jewish people a refuah, a beneficial healing for us. Each plague, for them, it struck them, for us, it healed us. When you go through the order of the 10 plagues, have a complete set of 10, and by the time they were finished, their culture was devastated, our culture was ready to be redeemed and to head toward Har Sinai. The makos correspond to the 10 seros, and they go from the bottom up. If you count from the bottom up, the 8th sephira is Bina. Bina is often translated in English as understanding, but it needs much more of a translation than that. The Chachamim say Bina is mevin davor mitoch davor, to understand something from something else, meaning you have a fact, something which is given, you're given several facts, and then you take all of those pieces of information and think about them and infer and deduce new things. So from that which is available to us, we then reflect upon it, contemplate on it, and produce new thoughts. That's the power of Bina. So the Arbeh rested, didn't eat on Shabbos. What does that have to do with the Midah or the Sphira of Bina? And Rabbi Twersky said, because people were meant to understand something from that. They were meant to see that the Borod were eating the crops all week long, and then they stopped on Shabbos. Why should they stop? They're locusts. So the people were meant to look at this fact and infer that this is a special day. Something's happening on this day. This day is Shabbos. So the Mitzrayim ignored that fact, and therefore them, it was an additional blow to their culture. The Yehudim, the Jewish people, looked at that, understood what it was about, grasped it properly, and therefore for them, for us, it was a refuah. We did not ignore what was occurring. We understood it properly and came to the correct conclusion. So through that plague of Arbeh in the Midah of Bina, working our way all the way up to the top of Makas Bechoros, one more step. And in this respect, our Midah of Bina was healed, developed, and built to an even greater extent. Okay, that's Mitzrayim. What about us? We're also meant to take our koach of Bina, look at the world around us, try to understand as best as we can, mevin davar mitoch davar, one thing from the next, to see what? That Hashem is running the world. All midos lead to God. Any midah tova leads us to Hashem. There's 10 different pathways through which we get there. Each midah, each sphira is a pathway toward Hashem, but we're meant to take that midah and ride it toward God. So we take the midah of chesed, for example, and trace it back to Hashem. Hashem, through his kindness, created the world. So with the midah of bina, now we're meant to take our understanding and use it to reach HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the idea of the midah of bina for us. Now, bina can be used in many ways. People can reach incorrect conclusions. People can mistakenly conclude that there is no God. That would be the wrong side of bina. We want to be on the right side of bina and understand what that midah is leading us toward, the midah of bina. So Bezras Hashem, may we all be zoche to use each of our midos, and specifically this week, the midah of bina, to be able to understand through all that we do know, even those things which are more hidden from us, and see Hashem's presence in the world and in our lives. Ken Yehi Ratzon. Now, last week, I sang Yom Zeh Mechubad, and it was a niggin which I told you I had learned when I was younger. I shared it with you. You'll do a similar thing with Sur Mishalo. It's a little bit of a similar style, but not quite the same niggin. It's a different niggin. Also, a niggin is Zemer, which I learned when I was very young, and we sing it sometimes. If you want to follow along, we're Tzur Mishalom. Any Bencher, Shabbos, Miros books will have it. And don't worry, no one's going to hear you sing because you're muted and only I can be heard. Just the way it should be, right? That's the way it should be. Okay. Tzur Mishalom, Chanu Baruch Hu Emunai, Savanu V'yasanu Kirvar Hashem, Hazan Esaylam Mayro Avinu, Achanu Eslach V'yeino Shasinu, Akeinu Delishmai, Unhalila Befinu, Amarnu V'yaninu, and Kadosh Hashem, Sur Mishalai Achanu, Baruch Hu Emunai, Savanu V'yasanu Kirvar Hashem, B'shir V'kol Toida, Nevarech L'Elokeinu, Al Eretz Chemda Toiva Shein Chila V'Yseinu, Ma'azon V'Tzeida, Hisbiya L'Nafsheinu, Chasta Gavar Leinu, V'Yemes Hashem, Sur Mishalach Chanu Baruch Hu Emunai, Savanu V'yasanu Kirvar Hashem, Rachem B'chastecha Alam Chatzureinu, Atzi Amishkan Kivodecha Zevo Beis Tifarteinu, Ben David Avdecha Yavai V'yigaleinu, Ruach Hapeinu, Mashiach Hashem, Sur Mishalai Achanu, Baruch Hu Emunai, Savanu V'yasanu Kirvar Hashem, Ibane Hamikdash Tzion Temalem, V'sham Nashim Shechadash, V'nananale, Harachamon Hamikdash, Yisbarach V'yisalem, Akos Yayin Maleh, K'virkas Hashem, Sur Mishalach Chanu, Baruch Hu Emunai, Savanu V'yasanu Kirvar Hashem, Diriram da 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 ram ba da di da 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 ram ba, Diriram ba bam ba bam ba, Diriram bam ba ba ram, Diriram ba ram ba, Diriram ba ram ba, Yirararararama, yirararararara, Sarmishalachanu, Oarfu Amuna, Savanu Vyasanu, Kirvarashem. That's for Mishalah. Thank you. One of the Friday night Zemiros. I'd like to share with you a couple thoughts about that. Number one, Tzur Mishalah parallels benching. Each one of its verses corresponds to one bracha in benching, in Birchas Hamazon. So Hazones Olamo, verse number 1, corresponds to Baruch Ato Hashem, Hazones Hakol. Second verse, B'shir v'kol toda, giving thanks to Hashem for the land of Eretz Yisrael, corresponds to paragraph number 2, Noda L'cha, concluding with Baruch Ato Hashem, blessed are you Hashem, Ala Oretz, for the land, Bel Hamazon, the land of Eretz Yisrael and its food. Third stanza, Rachem b'chasdecha, please Hashem have compassion on your nation, on Zion, on your Beis HaMikdash. That parallels the third bracha of benching, Rachem. And the last one, Yibana HaMikdash, corresponds to the fourth bracha of benching. There are 4 brachos in benching, and in that way, they correspond to all of benching. Now, there are those who say that if a person sings Tzur Mishalo during the meal, maybe they were Yotzei benching, because it parallels benching. So what some people say to do is if you're going to sing Tzur Mishalo during your Friday night meal, you should have in mind that you don't mean to be Yotzei benching, and therefore you can bench afterward free and clear. Now, I saw recently, and this is kind of why I had it in mind, that the Stipler Gaon, in order to demonstrate that he was not Yotzei his benching with Tzur Mishalo, is after they would sing Tzur Mishalo, he would eat a piece of bread. And that would show specifically that he did not mean to be Yotzei his benching when singing Tzur Mishalo. Okay, very fascinating little piece of halachic information related to one of the Shabbos Zemiros. Also wanted to say, I think I made a mistake. The 4th paragraph, Yibana HaMikdash, corresponds to the ending of the 3rd bracha, B'nei Barachama B'Yushalayim, Amen, not to the 4th bracha, which is Hu Heitiv, Hu Meitiv. Now I'd like to share with you one more thought, and then we'll say Erev Tov and get in Erev Shabbos. This is something that I learned a little earlier today with a Sfas Emes Chabura. A Sfas Emes Chabura that I recently begun with several of the men in our shul who now live in Eretz Yisrael. Because now that we have Zoom, you can actually learn across the world. So we had a Sfas Emes shiur in shul for a long time, and it was populated by many of the men who have since moved to Eretz Yisrael. And recently we decided, hey, let's just do this again, and we'll do it over Zoom. So with that shiur, I shared the following thought today from the Sfas Emes. He says as follows: when the Jewish people were in Mitzrayim, we were commanded, after we shechted the Korban Pesach, to smear its blood on the mashkov, the lintel, and the 2 mezuzos, the 2 doorposts. It says, V'higatem, you shall touch the blood to those 3 areas, the mashkov and the 2 mezuzos. The Midrash says that that's 3 things. 1 mashkov, 2 mezuzos equals 3. And what do we have in mind? The Gimel Avos. When they put the blood on the doorpost, they were meant to be thinking about the merit of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, corresponding to the mashkov and the mezuzos. What does this mean? So Sfas Emes says it's really only through the zechus of the avos that we were able to leave Mitzrayim. We didn't have any zechus of our own. and through the zechus of the avos, we left Mitzrayim. Now, he then goes on to say an idea which really caught my attention. Anytime we have Golus and Geula, exile and redemption, Golus means we have been separated from our source. So in the physical world, that manifests itself as the Jewish people having to leave or be thrown out of the land of Israel. That's our source, Eretz Yisrael. Golus is being separated from our source, going out into the various countries we've lived in for the past almost 2,000 years. So if Golus means being separated from our source, it must mean, says the Sfas Emes, that Geula means to be reconnected to our source. So we visualize Geula as like we're going somewhere, we're getting out, we're being redeemed. Where are we going? We're going to the land of Eretz Yisrael. We're going to be reconnected to our source. That occurs on two levels. The source of our people is Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. As we wander through exile, we become separated from our source, reconnecting to our avos, what they stood for, the mitos that they lived by, what they did in the world. Every step of reconnection to that which they represented is Geula. And certainly reconnecting to the land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael, which Hashem promised to each one of the three of us. How do we manifest that in our lives? In terms of the midos, Avram was a midah of chesed. Anytime we reinforce the midah of chesed, we're reconnecting to Avram Avinu. Yitzchak is the midah of din, gevura. Anytime we reinforce and develop that midah, we're reconnecting to Yitzchak Avinu. Yaakov Avinu is the midah of tiferes, or rachamim, or emes. When we reinforce and develop that midah, we're reconnecting to Yaakov Avinu. So we shouldn't think they lived a long time ago, we can't reconnect. We can, by the way we behave and the way we interact with other people, that reconnects us to them. What did the Jewish people need in order to leave Mitzrayim? They had to put the dam of the Korban Pesach on the mashkof, on the shtei mezuzahs. They had to reconnect to the avos. That helped them get out of Mitzrayim. We too, whenever we do those kinds of things, that's the precursor of leading us ourselves out of this exile to our redemption, our reconnection to the avos, our reconnection to Eretz Yisrael, and of course, our highest reconnection to the Ribono Shel Olam. May we be zocheh to work on that every day of our life and to see that actualize be'emes u'bekaro b'mheira b'yameinu. If everybody can unmute, we can say Erev Tov and a Gittin Shabbos, Erev Shabbos to everybody.
Yes.
Great to see you. Thank you again to Ilka and Jerry, and thank you again to Shalamis.
Erev Tov, Shalom. Shabbos.
Hope to see all the
Oh,
ladies
good
that are on
Shabbos.
Malka. There's
Shabbos.
Looking
Yes,
forward.
Shalom.
Looking
Okay.
forward.
Saturday night. 8:00, right here.
Right here.
Paying tribute to Uncle Martin.
Okay. All right.
Have a good Shabbos, everybody.
Shabbos.
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 All the best. Bye-bye.